These are some Dinar Guru updates, starting off with Mark Z via PDK. We have some key things happening in Iraq. Quote, the World Bank is ready to support economic reforms in Iraq, unquote. Mark Z says this one is important. It goes along with a couple things we have seen. Where are part of the reforms? A different value. Sampson article quotes central bank governor, the value of the dinar is stable. We are in the process of raising Iraq from high risk countries. Quote, the bank is in the process of raising Iraq from high risk countries according to the European Union classification, pointing to maintaining the stability of the value of the dinar significantly, unquote. Frank 26, Firefly, CBI governor, is on the news saying all is well and Iraq has new plans and meeting with the European Union went very good. Frank, all the telltale signs are there. You can read the writing on the wall. Notice how they focus on the reforms and they ignore the political nonsense. That's what the CBI governor just did. Mark Z via PDK. Many more reports, tier 3 folks getting paid, but I still don't have somebody that I feel comfortable telling all you guys 100% that they have spendable money yet, but we are still getting multiple reports on that front. We continue to hear very positive things out of Iraq. Article quote, the governor of central bank discusses with the European Union the file of the Iraqi economy, unquote. Mark Z says we continue to see open negotiations with Iraq and many countries around the world about changing that rate value and economic reforms. We don't know the timing, but we are close on the precipice. All right, from Pimpy, until this seated government mess gets cleared up, you're not going to see any real changes to the Iraqi dinar. I know people don't want to hear that. How are you going to change the value of the Iraqi dinar when you're too reliant on oil to provide 95% of your government budget? That hasn't changed. They were well on their way starting to build the private and public sectors until this mess happened. Now you can't get a budget, you haven't formed a government, you're on the brink of a civil war. Although Iraq is benefiting from high oil prices, they continue to increase their federal reserves at the same time increasing their gold holding, which are both very good. But again, you still have major obstacles right there in your way. The government, I know this is a rough ride, but it will end one way or the other. Sandy Ingram article quote, governor of the central bank, the value of the dinar is stable. We are in the process of raising Iraq from high risk countries, unquote. This story was on the front page of a major news portal in Iraq. The bank is in the process of raising Iraq from high risk countries according to the classification of the European Union. I'm not sure what that statement means, but it looks like Iraq is sending a message everything is okay. Caparoni, if the Iraqi dinar is ever going to go up in value, it's going to take a lot of work for Iraq. The formation of a government, passing of laws through parliament, and encouragement of investment in order to diversify their their economy away from oil. Mark Z via PDK, Nader said European banks are about to begin receiving and exchanging the dinar. When will the U.S. start? Referencing from Nader's post from the 12th, remember this does not mean the value has changed yet, just that these are banks that previously would not deal with Iraqi dinar at all. Now will, which, excuse me, which means the dinar is still at the same value it is today, waiting on the rate to change. But they are accepting it now as huge progress, but does not mean they're exchanging it in Europe for a higher value yet. They have to be able to accept and exchange when the time comes, so it's still good news. All right, Breitling is saying you've got to get it out of your head that there's a group in Iraq somewhere that doesn't want them to revalue their currency. Which countries would not want Iraq to get into the SWIFT system? That would be Russia and China. So if there's any negative news, I haven't seen any of it. The dinar crowd is so small, Russia and China hasn't put any effort or money into degrading Iraq's chances. All right, Nader from the Mideast article quote, Nader from the Mideast says next week they'll come out and they'll say, hey, the reserve's at 90 to 95 billion now. Be ready for that too. The gold is going to go up by next week too. Frank 26 article, quote, Barzini's party reveals the international move to stop the possible armed conflict after the 40. Who told you about the 17th? Is there anybody that talks about the 17th? No. I don't think that we're going to have conflict that we're looking for on the 17th going into the 18th. All right, and Mountain Goat. So, as foreign investors in the Iraqi Dinar, we sit and we wait and see what happens in the conclusion of this ongoing election saga. You can clearly see that it is Nouri al-Maliki who is keeping the issue of the president and the prime minister unresolved. He is the key to settling this election. He is the bottleneck. The World Bank tells us it is ready to support the reforms as in the white paper. We know what this means, but Iraq needs a government to move ahead. Frank article quotes central bank governor, the value of the dinar is stable. We are in the process of raising Iraq from high-risk countries. Frank says, behold the birth of the international stable Iraqi dinar. What does it say that I love so much? The governor of the Central Bank of Iraq tells the citizens of Iraq, quote, work is currently underway with a number of sober international banks to create the necessary ground for banking cooperation with Iraqi banks, unquote. Frank 26 says, this is amazing. Pimpy article, quote, the governor of central bank discusses with the European Union the file of the Iraqi economy. The ambassador of the European Union praised the efforts of the central bank to remove Iraq from the European list of high-risk countries, unquote. So Pimpy says, so they're still on the list. We will see articles from time to time in which Iraq is doing all the steps necessary to make sure they are removed from the list. Mark Z via PDK, the news is giving us clear indicators that the necessity is now for a reset, not weeks from now, not months from now, not years from now, but days at most. The news all over the world is pointing to this is happening at any moment, but there is very little to nothing coming out of Iraq and redemption centers. Sampson articles one major diplomatic meeting at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and revealed its goals. Number 2, America reveals the meeting of 11 embassies to support Iraq. Quote, we support economic reform and a strong private sector that creates more job opportunities for the Iraqi people, more investment opportunities, and a prosperous Iraq. All right, Nader from the Mideast, they know Kazemi and Saleh. They're going to stay in power at least for another year. Breitling says if you look at the news for the average person in Iraq, it's horrible for them because it's back and forth between the Sunni and the Shia. But you and I are not watching what's going on socially in Iraq. This does not dictate how they're going to expand their markets. Claire article, quote, a government advisor clarifies the possibility of submitting a law proposal that includes a financial aspect. We expect the reserve to reach 100 billion if oil prices remain high until the end of the year, explaining that this figure will support the stability of the Iraqi currency. Frank 26 article, quote, Al-Sadr warns that the crowd and the brigades will take over the security of the Arabian visit. The consequences may not be dire if this is done, unquote. Frank says this is the second example you've seen where the leaders of Iraq are preparing the Iraqi citizens for the 17th. All right, Bruce via Wiser Now says it looks like it's trying to get where our notifications and our start of exchanges. I'm going to say any day. We've been told by some sources it's so close, it's extremely close. We know the exchanges are already happening on Dinar and other parts of the world. It's just up to us to get started next. So I'm pretty excited about all that, and let's see what happens. Pimpy article, quote, America reveals the meeting of 11 embassies to support Iraq. This is the international community coming together to do what they can to squash the issue going on in Iraq. I'm going to be curious to see who it is they support, whether it's the Sadrist movement who want to make sure that the country is ran by the people, Or are they going to support somebody like Maliki, a corrupt government, which actually who the New World Order likes to have in power because they're easy to control? And lastly, RV already interesting situation sounds more and more that the UN will force an agreement for the good of Iraq.